Hi, it's Happy Tuesday. This is Darlene, and we left off, and now we're at 9 to 10 years of age. And there's a couple of things that happened, and I was directed to read and or confer, which was kind of interesting in one of my meditations and something that came through. But in regards to this age, I was 9 to 10 years old. And at this point, the divorce had occurred and moved from one state to another. And we stayed back, but we only stayed back for a period of time, and then we were sent to go live with our father in the other state, our adopted dad, and who is my father. He is who I call father, and my dad. And by that time, I was swimming, doing gymnastics, and since we really didn't have a mother figure around, it was my gymnastics coach who bought me my first bra. It was my swim coach who taught me raising, shaving, and all this stuff. She bought me my first razor. But at that time, our father wasn't around a lot because he was in the international trade and was gone quite often, and he had caretakers and things that were there for us to take care of us. But during that time, since we were on our own, latch lock key kids, and our older sister was doing the cooking, or they had caretakers that came in and did a lot of that as well, and cleaning and taking care of 5 kids. But that's where I can say at that point there was a lot of where my bad behavior was, and at that point was stealing and lying and doing things like that I shouldn't have been doing. And it's the one thing you've got to remember: everybody makes mistakes, and they move from those mistakes, they learn from them, and they grow. But when I was having that, one of the things that came up was, what were actual God's words? And I was like, God's words? I said, we have the Bible, but that's not really God's words. That's other people's words. And I was like, well, the only words that I know for a fact were the 10 Commandments. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then something else came up. So then I went and I had written down all the 10 Commandments, and I was like, oh, okay. And how many of us have actually never broken a commandment? I don't know one person alive who hasn't broken one of the 10 Commandments. And that's part of why we're here. We're to learn and to move forward in our lives. And then at the same time, when I was having that information in that download, they also said, look up the 7 deadly sins. So I was like, oh, okay, so where did that actually come from? So, which was developed by man. And it is pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. So, those right there is, I thought was quite interesting when I went and I compared the two. And some of them, they are within those 10 Commandments. And I found it interesting because, Jesus died for our sins. Not only did he die for our sins so that we could be forgiven, okay? Since we can be forgiven, then, it's not that you outright, it is the intent behind it. What is your intention? Did you intend to break those vows, covens, whatever, commandments? I don't think anybody intentionally outright intends to break those. It's in some cases there might be. I mean, I've been with some people, but I don't think they have that in the back of their mind that that's what they're intending to do. And that is where, you know, you have to really look at the whole situation. What was the person's intentions? Were they intentionally trying to do that? Were they not? And that's where we have to give, you know, some understanding to individuals in regards to that type of situation. Also, let's see here. What else was there that came up? That's what I wrote down, and I think that might be it for today. The next area that I'm going into is from age 10 to 12, and then that's when there was some change, and we'll go over that one tomorrow. And the one thing I do want to make a comment on is in regards to trauma bonding. I definitely had trauma bonds and had to figure out that with my sibling and siblings, and find that, you know, no, I won't allow that to continue. And so that's real important, that you find out all these different things that happen in your life, and then what circumference that as you move forward. So like with myself, absolutely, you know, I absolutely did have a trauma bond, especially with my adopted brother, who I was with during the time that we stayed behind with our adopted mother at that time. And so it was repairing that and, you know, recognizing it, number one. Once you recognize it, what's the behavior to change and move forward? And so, like I said, you know, reparenting myself is what I've been doing for the last 8 years. That's right. I just remembered what the other thing was. How do I say this? So, one thing, anytime I do this, I always say a prayer before I start, and call in my angels and guardians and ancestors of the highest vibrations before I start anything. And in this case, one of the things that was brought up was when my spiritual awakening started happening. In 2018, something very unusual happened to me, and, you know, my world was falling apart, and they always say your world falls apart before things get better. Okay? Keep that in mind. Have the faith of a mustard seed, and that's all you need. After that, the experience I had is what they call a near-death experience, okay? I only found that out after doing research, trying to find somebody that had a similar experience. And anybody that had a similar experience, it was considered a near-death experience. And so I was like, oh my gosh. But I was awake when it happened. It wasn't like I was in a car accident. I wasn't in, you know, things like this. And when I came through, I remember yelling, what am I to remember? What am I to remember? And then it was really interesting. And so I remember writing everything down of that happened then, and was like, whoa. And that just started this whole awakening process for me, to where it was like I started to understand more. I was receiving more knowledge. I was, it was like I was in a whole white area, and it was like mist everywhere. And then when I came to, it was very enlightening, is a good way of putting it. Since then, I have been on this journey, and that's one of the things I also verified was when I actually did my birth chart, because I believe in astrology, that our bodies react to the planet, the atmosphere around us, our energy, as well as, you know, as above, so below. And when I had my birth chart read, I found it kind of interesting, because they kept saying I have the hand of God. So what is the hand of God? You know, and I was like, what? And that's in my birth chart. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I was like, okay. And so anyway, it was just a little bit more information I wanted to give in regards to that and to my awakening and where I'm at now. I love knowledge, and I don't love to read it. I really enjoy the fact that they put books online now so I can listen to them via auditory, because I'm more of an auditory visual learner versus actual reading. And that's because of my dyslexia. But hey, it is what it is. And so anyway, that's it for today. And we'll be back tomorrow to do 10 through 12. And we'll go from there. Everybody have a blessed and wonderful evening. Bye-bye.